Hi, this is Stuart Bray with a quick update of a makeup I'm going to be doing for the UMAE trade show this year. This makeup is going to be a little character makeup, just a fun little thing I wanted to do, something I didn't want to do too much in the way of creature stuff, so I've kind of focused on a realistic kind of character makeup for this. I just want to show you a little technique I've been using for creating sort of pitted skin, like kind of acne scarring on the cheeks and the forehead and stuff. And basically it's a very easy way of doing it. You just kind of scoop out big chunks with a sculpting tool here, and I want you to kind of enjoy the fact that this is quite crude in how it's being done. I think a lot of people get hung up on making everything precise and perfect and everything, and you can be quite sort of bold with this kind of technique, just kind of gouging in there, taking out big sort of chunks of plastiline with the end of a loop tool like this. And then I'm going to put some little blobs in with a little tool as well, because I want texture to go in and some texture to come out. So I'm trying to create a kind of a rough pitted texture. So by putting blobs in places where I haven't scooped out, I can create a kind of a nice uneven kind of textured surface. And then I'm going to use this tool, which is these tools are like for icing, decorating icing and cake making. They're little ball-ended tools, and they're very nice. They're stainless steel tools, and they come in different sizes, and they're very good for just smoothing out things because they don't have an edge. Being a ball, it's a round shape, so it just kind of smooths things over. So it's very nice for kind of gliding over the sort of the peaks and the troughs of what you've sculpted to create a kind of a smooth texture. So you gradually smooth it down by using this, and it's very nice for doing, especially for things like insides of nostrils and hollow shapes as well. Another trick is to kind of just constantly kind of press down with a thumb or a finger to flatten everything out. So you sort of start quite aggressively and then knock it down. And also using this sponge as well, my favourite reticulated foam sponge, which you may know as a stipple sponge or a fish tank filter for fish tank pumps. It's the same kind of stuff. It's like an expanded foam, and it's quite aggressive and scratchy. It's very good for smoothing down the surface of plastiline. Again, lots of kind of pressing down with the thumb and the finger just to kind of flatten it out helps. The other thing I do is use like a stiff brush. This is just from an old sweeping brush, and I pulled some of the hairs out and stuck it into a piece of brass just to make it smaller and easier to control. And you can cut them to shorter or longer lengths depending on how stiff you want the brush to be. And it's very good for just dragging across. And it does the same thing as the other tools, the rake tools, but it does it at a reduced rate. It kind of smooths it out much more sort of finer, and also pressing down with thumbs and fingers always to try and reduce your tool marks all the time and smooth things out. And you can see the effect is quite nice. I mean, this is still quite crude, but it's kind of blocked out, and we can go in for some more texturing and stuff, especially with this kind of skin pores and everything. Using this clay shaper tool as well, that was quite a nice thing. I like these silicone tipped clay shaper tools because they're nice because they're not too aggressive, and that they are reasonably flexible, so they will kind of bend as you press into them, so you can get quite a variety of tool marks out of them. The other thing on this makeup is I wanted to do a neck, so I've done a reasonably heavily sort of textured neck, which again I am going to reduce and soften as we go by. It's got these kind of these wrinkles and lines and creases in it, which I'm going to soften off. If you want to see this sort of thing in more detail, check out the sculpting skin textures video I've got on my channel, which is it goes into a lot more depth about how you create the sort of skin pores and the wrinkles and the lines. I could go into it now, but because I've already done a video on it, I would recommend you check that video out if you are interested in knowing more about that kind of thing. The other thing I want to do is some ears. I've got some interesting things I want to do with the ears. So I start with my ear casts, which are straight out of the life cast, which we've taken. And what I wanted to do is take all the bits of the plaster that I don't need off. So everything that's not the ear. So even around the backs, we've taken away everything. And the idea of doing this is because ears are notoriously difficult things to sort of mold, because they are very complicated and they have lots of curves and shapes and undercuts. So the trick is to take those out by removing everything which we don't need, because normally when you're doing ear appliances, it's just going on the ear itself, and it's the head and the back of the ears and the head and everything get in the way of everything. So I tend to clean all those off with tools. So you end up with a much reduced version of the ears, which you can also what I've done here is smooth some plastiline into all the hollows, because again my appliance isn't going right into the ear itself, it's just going to sit on the outside of the lobe, so it makes sense to get rid of everything you don't need, to reduce the amount of undercuts you're going to have to deal with. The other thing is to then build this up into a block of clay so that you have a nice sort of shape for the ear to sit in. And you'll notice that the ear is sat at a much more agreeable angle now. The ear is actually oriented upwards, so that any mould that would come off of this can do so more easily, because it's not having to negotiate, you know, a kind of a flap of ear. The ear is actually pointed upwards, so it's going to make it easier for me to make a mould of. So these are just the masters, the plaster masters that I've taken out the undercuts. I've shaved off the excess plaster, built up a clay block, and you can see the keys I've put on here now in clay, so they'll come out in the resin later. And once I've got my plaster forms, I'm then going to make a silicone mould. So basically I've created these moulds by painting 3 or 4 layers of silicone on, and then I've put a key around the outside edge as well, so that it will sit in the jacket and retain it correctly in the jacket later. One thing I do recommend for moulds, it's also quite handy to reduce the amount of silicone you need, and also makes it quite strong, is to put some kind of fabric inside the silicone. So I did 2 or 3 layers of silicone, and then I put a thin layer of fabric over the top, quite an open weave fabric, like a kind of a cheesecloth material, and then push that onto a layer of silicone. And then when that silicone's gone off, then paint a final silicone over the layer of silicone over the top, so it's kind of sandwiched in there, so the actual fabric is meshed into the silicone, and it just makes it a lot more durable without it being unnecessarily thick. Once the silicone's all set up and cured, I made a quick jacket. I just used plaster and scrim for this jacket, because I just wanted to try and cut costs down for this, and these moulds are not going to be used lots and lots of times, so it wasn't worth spending a huge amount of money on them, but it's just a nice supporting jacket that will keep that silicone shape. When the silicone and the plaster and everything's gone off, you can open the moulds up, and obviously you're going to pretty much destroy your original. You can see there the plaster has been dislodged, and the clay and everything is kind of messed up, but that doesn't matter because we've got our mould. We just need to clean that clay out, which is very easy because it's just all clay, so it washes out with water. And then once we've made our mould, you can see the final result, which is a blue fast cast urethane resin, and you can see everything now is just one piece. It's all one thing. You can see where the clay was and the angle and everything and the smoothed out shapes, but it's now just one piece of material. It's just one piece of resin, and so this should be nicer to sculpt on. And when I've sculpted these, I shall do a quick video showing you what happens next from there. The other thing I wanted to do was to, with the appliance, I need to involve the lips, and I need to kind of have a top lip and a bottom lip removed so that I can make my appliance fit the lips better. This will make sense when you see it all done. So what I've got is my plaster face cast, and I needed to, for the top lip appliance, I need to be able to get to the inside of the top lip, which I can't do because, as you can see, the bottom lip and the chin is in the way. So what I've done is I've done a pencil line where my appliance is going to finish on the face, and I'm going to shave that away. I'm literally going to shave all that off. As I was saying, with the lips, you can see here's the lip sculpt. I've got a top lip and a bottom lip that have been sculpted, and I'm going to do them as separate appliances because obviously the top lip gets in the way of the back of the bottom lip, and similarly the bottom lip gets in the way of the back of the top lip, and I need to sculpt the appliances to finish almost inside the mouth, and I can't get to the inside of the mouth with both lips there. So what I'm going to do is to shave some of the clay down. So I'm using this tool, which is a very rough file, which helps shave things off. That's good for smaller things. For something a bit more aggressive, you may need what's known as a surform, which is, or a rasp, and that's like a kind of a more heavy-duty plaster tool for shaving down plaster. The other thing is to scoop inside underneath the top lip. So I've got this kind of, this is like a rounded chisel. It's like a plaster gouge. It's very good for kind of gouging hollow scoops into the underside of things, so that I use that for getting right under the top lip without damaging the top lip. The surform and the files are actually quite aggressive for sort of finer work, so I've switched to this little scooping tool for the scooping of the plaster underneath. And when that's done, you can see the end result, which is basically the bottom lip and the chin are pretty much smoothed off, and it's also scooped right under the bottom lip now, so I can finish the top lip sculpt right inside that top lip. And I've also shaved down the eyelids. You can see her eyelids there, the upper and lower lid create a little undercut as well, so I've shaved and smoothed those off. Once I've finished that with my plaster face, I'm going to just clay out the sides and put keys on them. Again, this is purely just to remove as many undercuts as possible. And these keys, which have all been sort of splayed in such a way that the mould should come away from them very easily. And you can see, looking down from above, all of the keys and everywhere on the sculpt, everywhere on the core is exposed. You can see all of it from the top looking down. And that's how you know you've pretty much got rid of most of your undercuts. There may be a little bit of an undercut around the sort of the sides of each of the jaw on each side, but we'll sort that out when we come to making the mold. But what we've done here is take off as much of the undercuts as possible by claying them out. So once that's done, the next thing is to make a silicone mold of this. And again, I've just done a brush on silicone. So I do a couple of layers with just catalyst in it. I've added no thickeners to them so that the silicone that goes on is very liquid. And that way I can brush into all the detail, make sure I capture all the detail on the first couple of coats. Once that's done, I've gone on with a couple of more coats with a little bit of thickener in there, so you actually turn it into like a mayonnaise-y kind of consistency, and that's much easier to smooth on, and it sort of stops falling away from running everywhere because it's more of a gelatinous kind of texture. When all the silicone layers are done, the last thing I'm going to do is put the keys on around the outside, and what I did was basically get a long strip of aluminium, blocked off the ends, and then flooded that with silicone to make this kind of square section rod of silicone, which can then be pinned around the outside. You can actually see the little dents along the length of the silicone, which is where I've used T-pins, like long 2-inch T-pins, to actually pin the silicone in place so that when the silicone's gone off, it actually is retained in the right place and pushed flat onto the surface of the mould. When all the silicone's gone off, I do the same thing again with a plaster jacket, just a big one-piece plaster jacket with plaster and scrim. And when that's gone off, I turn it over and pull out the plaster. You can see on the inside the back of the plaster head and the clay which was used to splay out. And you can see just how much wider I've made the base of the head by adding that clay. There's a good sort of 2 inches, 50 millimeters of clay built out in order to reduce as much of the undercuts as possible. And there we have our core mould. This is the silicone negative looking into the face, sitting in its plaster jacket. And the next thing to do is to fiberglass into this, my first core. So I'm going to fiberglass into the face, and I'm going to extend below the chin down onto the neck, because I can always tend to make them a bit bigger to start with because I can cut them back afterwards. So here's my my first fiberglass core, and that's the upper face. You can see there that the key on the chin is going to do double duty here, because I've got a key on the chin here, which is going to help locate the face when I do the face. And the same thing is going to happen when I do the lower half for the neck. The neck piece is going to go down there, and the neck that comes out of it is going to have a key at the top. Here is the inside of the face again. This is my this is looking into the silicone face, and what I want to do is to make a core for the chin. And on this one, I'm going to do this in just a quick urethane resin, the same as the ears. So what I've got is the face, and I'm going to clay into the nose and the top lip. I'm going to fill that with clay to take them away, and then I'm going to mix up my fast cast resin and pour that in there. Now I've tilted the head at an angle, and the angle that I wanted it at, if I was to fill that with resin, it would just run out through over the chin. So that's why I put a little clay wall there to sort of dam the resin and stop it from escaping. And so I fill it with a blue resin, leave that for about an hour to go off. And when that's gone off, I can pull that out of the mould, and there you can see the clay is actually stuck to the fast cast, which is fine. But you can see there, that's what the cast would have looked like if it was complete. But by actually cleaning away the clay there, you can actually see what I've done, which is to take away the top lip and the nose. So that's not part of the mould at all. So now when I actually put my chin piece on there, you can see that I'll be able to get to the back of the bottom lip because the top lip and the nose is no longer there, and that's exactly what's going to happen to the top half of the top lip as well. So hopefully that should make sense. If you have any questions, obviously drop me an email, that's fine. My email address as always is stuartbray@yahoo.com, but I shall be back soon with an update to show you the finished sculpts and molds and everything, and then another one hopefully with the finished appliances and how they will run in silicone. It should be fun. Hopefully see you there at the UMAE at the Business Design Centre in London. It's going to be on April 11th and 12th of 2015. If you can make it, come along and say hi. And thanks for watching.